Welcome to another holistic aquafarm video. My name is Anissa and today we are talking about raising rabbits in a colony, so stick around. In planning this video, I was actually planning to go visit a farmer who raises rabbits in a colony. So I'll have been able to present some first-hand information and you all would have been able to, we would have all been able to glean some first-hand knowledge of what it's like, and I'll gain a personal experience about what it's like to raise rabbits in a colony, right? But I have not been able to do that yet. When even after this video goes live, if I am still able to get in contact with someone who raises rabbits in a colony, I will still, reach out to them and go do that visit so we can get some first-hand experience. So if you know someone who raises rabbits in a colony, let them reach out to us and we'll pay them a visit and we'll all be able to learn something, okay? First of all, regardless of whether you raise rabbits in a colony or if you choose to raise rabbits in a cage, your first priority as a breeder, as a rabbit owner, is safety and security for your animals. You want to secure your animals to prevent predators, all forms of predators, including the two-legged predators, from being able to access your livestock. But you absolutely want to prevent pests from coming in. Rabbits are very low on the food chain, right? So they have a lot of predators that would attack them. Some of them may not attack the adults, they may attack the kids, and that is going to affect your business. It will affect the survival of rabbits in a whole, okay? Some pests you'll want to look out for are things like dogs, cats, and rats. Those are basic animals that you may have at home and you may have to secure your rabbits. So a little backstory: when I first started raising rabbits, our dog wanted to come around and was by the cage sniffing out, and I could see where it was going, right? So I had to improvise something, a barrier to prevent him from being able to go in. And what occurred the first time I bred rabbits, he was, apparently the kids made him extra determined to go in and attack, and he did, and I didn't lose all, but I did lose my first set of kids, but it taught me a lesson, right? I mean, he was fine with the does and the adults before, but he saw kids and it was just, but we both learned a lesson from that experience. So that is something I want you to take from that. You want to ensure that your rabbits are secured, especially if you're considering raising rabbits in a colony. You're going to be using a wider space and you may be tempted to just let them loose in your yard and let them run in your yard, because that's probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think about raising rabbits in a colony. You just let them go in your yard. But when you do that without putting things in place for them, they stand the risk of predators, your neighbors, your dogs, a stray cat. If you live close to a forested area, you may have some animals that may want to put your rabbits in danger. So you wanna put that into place. Ensure that your place is secured. Make sure it's well fenced, and things aren't able to just go in and attack your rabbits, okay? In terms of spacing, when you raise rabbits in a colony generally requires more space than a cage setup. So in a cage setup, you can provide 6 square feet to a doe. A breeding doe will require maybe 6, like 5. You need to provide like 5 square feet per doe, and that's New Zealand and Californians. Larger breed of rabbits would require more space for each individual, okay? But in terms of medium breed rabbits like New Zealand and Californians that we rear for meat, 5 square feet. So you're looking at a cage that could be 2.5 feet by 2 feet, right? And that'll give you a 5 square feet of space. When you raise rabbits in a colony, for example, it is basically double that space. So you'll want to look at 10 square feet per rabbit, because The idea behind a colony is to give them space to roam, to give them space to play, to give them space to jump around and have a little more freedom. So it should be a little playground for them. So it should be more space that should be given to them. Okay? Something else that you would consider, again, the first thing that will come to mind will be to let rabbits loose in your yard, and that's how you'll want to raise them as in a colony. But it's not the only way. You can in fact build cages or a hutch setup and raise rabbits in a colony. Think for instance like a large door kennel. There's lots of space. You can put different levels and have little ramps for them to run upon. They have more space to play in and to socialize with each other and stuff like that. But at the same time, they're not loose in the yard and they're still very secure. Okay, so you're not limited to just letting them run around in the yard. So if, for instance, you have neighbors who aren't very friendly, or they're not gonna, if they live close to them, they'll very willingly want to kill a rabbit, take a rabbit, poison a rabbit, or anything of the sort, you can still secure them properly by having a hutch system in place to prevent them from roaming the yard freely and becoming endangered. So they'll still be secure. So it comes a kind of compromise between a cage system and a colony system. The best of both worlds in that instance. It does mean that you would have to put out a little more on the upfront cost to do something like that, because they're no longer just running around in your yard. You will want to set up an enclosed garage or build a hutch that allows that kind of space, to allow that kind of setup. So you would have to invest some money to do that. There are some advantages and disadvantages to raising in a colony as opposed to cage. Raising rabbits in a colony, in terms of infrastructure, your infrastructure cost is significantly less than if you were to build individual cages for your rabbits. Okay, and I mean this, even if you were to go out and build a hutch for your rabbits, you will still spend less than building individual cages. How much less you spend depends on the design of the hutch that you implement. There will be less dividers in place. You may basically just have an outer frame, and they are able to run around in the entire cage, right? Like the cage behind me, for instance, instead of having dividers in there, so you would not account for having the dividers, so you would save on wire, and maybe you'll be able to make the cage a little bigger because you're gonna have the extra wire to use, right? So that's one of the advantages. You actually spend less on infrastructure. One of the advantages of having a cage setup, you are able to increase your stocking density. So that'll be a disadvantage of the colony setup. You would actually have to reduce your stocking density, because when you raise rabbits in a colony, you have to allow for more space per rabbit. So they need more square footage in a colony setup than they do in a cage system. So whereas in the cage behind me, I'm able to accommodate 4 doors in that cage, and they have ample room. Each cage is actually 3 feet by 2.5 or something along those lines. Then if I were to raise in a colony, I'll probably be able, into that cage I'll only be able to stock 2 doors in that same space if I open it up and decided to raise them in a colony. Another disadvantage of a colony setup that I think you should also take into consideration, you are likely to have more fights amongst your rabbits. Right now, you'll think that it's only the bucks that will fight. Bucks do fight with each other, but does also fight each other. Those are quite territorial, so they would fight another doe or a buck for space and show dominance as well. They would fight. So fighting is something that is a possibility. It may not be guaranteed. I mean, I'm sure there may be a lot of people who raise rabbits in a colony and they don't experience fighting, which is fantastic. But even in cage system, I've had siblings together that they do fight. Even though they've grown up with each other since they were kids, they would fights have ensued. I've had bloodshed. Okay, so that's something you want to take into consideration as well. Another disadvantage of raising in a colony may not be a big deal, but when you raise rabbits in a colony, they're a little harder to catch. When I could just put my hand in the cage and grab a rabbit, take it out of the cage, and when you raise rabbits in a colony, you actually have to go in and you might have to run around, try to corner the rabbit to try and catch it and something like that. And listen, I don't like having to run around behind a rabbit. I've had to do it. Sad to say, but I've had to do it a couple of times and I don't enjoy it at all. Right? So because they have more space, they have more space to jump and hop around and that kind of thing. You also need to bear in mind that with a colony setup, when it comes to breeding, things are going to be slightly different. Okay? Now, working on the assumption that you are allowing your bucks to live with your does and you're not removing your buck from them. Okay? It means that you'll be allowing your rabbits to breed freely. And with that, the consideration is you're gonna be having surprise pregnancies all the time because the bucks are allowed to mingle with your does. They will breed and you're not going to know because you're not going to be there with your rabbits 24/7. So you'll be, most of the time, you're probably not going to see when they breed. And because you don't know when they breed, it means that you don't know when they're going to kindle. So you'll go check your rabbits, make sure they have food, water every day, and you'll see that there's a nest, right? And that a doe kindled. Next thing is when you have several does in a colony, you're going to have some difficulty identifying which doe kindled. And then you're going to have to spend some time now to see, probably waiting around till the evening, to see which doe goes to nurse the kids in order for you to identify which doe kindled the kids. Right? If you have more than one buck in a colony setup, well, quite frankly, you'll probably never know who sired those kids. And by sired, I mean fathered. You likely that you're not going to know which buck is the father to the kids. If you have two bucks in a setup, bear in mind that that's one of the challenges you'll have. So that's going to be difficult when it comes to record keeping and record management. You're not going to know who the buck is, who the sire is, to record that. And, well, you will be able to do some investigation to determine who the doe is, but you'll have to spend a little more time with the rabbits in the colony setup to identify which doe is responsible for kindling the kids. Right, so don't forget to take that into consideration. One other aspect, depending on how you decide to set up your colony, if you do it as a cage setup or if you decide to do a type of hutch, be considerate of your flooring, right? Because wire cages are the easiest thing to clean because their droppings fall through the wire. Okay, you're building a hutch, depending on what you have to work with, the wood. I don't like wood for rabbits, in all honesty. And working with wood, you'll also have to be cleaning more often. It's not very sanitary because the wood will absorb urine and it's a playground for bacteria. If you have them running around in your yard, you probably may not have the extra cleaning to do, which is great, right? Something that you need to be considerate of if you do gardening. Depending on what you have growing in that garden, your rabbits will eat it, and then your rabbits will become a pest, and then you might want to kill them and eat them for meat. Right, so that's something you need to be mindful of as well too. Rabbits could be a pest if you have a garden set up in a yard and you want to raise them as a colony. So actually, depending on, you may actually want to set up your colony to protect your plants and to protect your rabbits. You might want to protect your rabbits from you so that you're not tempted to string them up and put them in a pot because they eat your crops, right? So take that into consideration. So I have to include my disclaimer. I don't raise rabbits in a colony. I am basing this information simply off of what I know as a rabbit farmer, as a rabbit breeder. These are things I know from watching other people, interacting with other people, reading and stuff like that. So I'm just passing along the information to you. If you know anyone who raised rabbits in a colony, please let them reach out to me. Maybe we could organize to feature them on a video and they'll be able to provide us with some first-hand information about raising rabbits in a colony. So we'll all be able to learn, we'll all be able to benefit from their experience. So stick around. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video. See you for the next one. Will larger